Okay. There, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, participants, on our first in the series of Weaving Indigenous Ways of Knowing into New Curriculum. And I don't know, Jody, if that's new curriculum is still the term or just curriculum, but we certainly have new curriculum on the horizon and in our classrooms. So, and then we want to do some classroom planning. So thank you for joining us. This is part 1, and our next part is, of course, next Tuesday, the 11th, and then the following Tuesday, the 18th. So hopefully we'll see all 3 days full of participants. And just for some background info, if you can't make it, we do record them, and then we will send you the slide deck as well. So you have access to all that likely the next day. So if you can't make it today, that's great. You can always go back in and see where we're at in our planning stage. So, okay. And we'll, oh, there we go. I was going to go, Jody.
Eventually, Donna, pick it up eventually.
Yeah, always we like to start in a good way. And, you know, sadly, COVID has prevented us from, you know, gathering in a huge place. But at the same time, we're able to provide this provincial webinar across Alberta so we can support all learners and teachers moving forward. So we always say we like to start in a good way. And by doing that, we smudge. So, you know, take the smudge smoke, put it to your heart, to your head, to your ears, to wherever you need it the most to cleanse, and to I always say within your eyes to see and to hear and have good thoughts as we move forward. So thank you for joining, and our virtual smudge. Kim, at any time, I know that you do a lot of smudging as well. So if you have anything to share, feel free to add whatever you would like. So good. Okay. Oh, next one. A land acknowledgement, again, because this is provincial, it's a pretty general one, but it's one that's really quite endearing to me. I know that we all have different land acknowledgements we're going to share for the next 3 parts as we move forward. This one is mine. I just talk about, you know, today as we gather in this meeting place to honor our ancestors, elders, and keepers of these territories, we acknowledge reconciliation with respect and through relationships that all spirit flows through all life and oh, somebody's on. All my relations. So all my relations, meaning all of my ancestors, sharing that with you as we move forward in a good way. Land acknowledgements come in various, you know, acknowledging land, people, territories, and you know, as we move forward, it certainly is a rich conversation when we talk about land acknowledgement. We seem to have a lot of questions around it, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If at any point in time too, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat box, and Kim, Jody, and myself will do our best to support you and answer as much as we can. Good. Again, we always offer a safe space agreement. We want you to ask questions, ask a ton. We might not know them all, but maybe other people do. Be open to new possibilities and ideas, and honor the space and respect all who are participating. So, you know, sometimes we might have conflicting viewpoints, perspectives, but that's okay. We're all here to learn as we move forward in this journey. Anything I ever do is through reconciliation, so I always make sure I include that comment. Okay. And here are our introductions. I'll do one quick. You know, as we move forward, we always share our bios on those screens, our ARPDC. And so every year I look at my bio and I think, wow, I have to tack another year to my teaching portfolio. So I'm up to 32 this year. I've been a teacher for 32 years. I was a classroom teacher for 27 of those years. And I take great pride in working with many First Nations across Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. And right at the moment, I work with a lot of professionals in providing the best way I know how. But I am from Saskatchewan. I'm from a reserve in Treaty 6. I am Cree. I am from the One Arrow First Nation, and I'm also Métis. I take great pride in wearing both hats. On my dad's side, we have a rich Métis heritage that we acknowledge. And as we are about to enter into Thanksgiving, we're very we're a good family, close family unit. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that if you have questions again, feel free to ask, and then I'll pop over to Kim.
Hello, everybody. I'm at a different part of the province. I live in High Prairie, which is up in northern Alberta by Lesser Slave Lake in Treaty 8 territory. This is my 38th year in education, getting close to 40. I am retired. I was a teacher, an administrator, and a researcher up in this area. I've been here virtually my entire life. And our area is very rich in Indigenous knowledge and Cree history and Métis history. Right where I live, it's a very tiny community. We did have, in fact, 5 residential schools within a close vicinity of the High Prairie area. So there are a number of First Nations communities, and there are 3 of Alberta's 8 Métis settlements in our region as well. So the students I grew up with and went to school with in the 60s and 70s, and then as a teacher and educator, and my children grew up with, and now my grandchildren. There's a legacy of teaching. Both my children are teachers. And I also had a unique opportunity, or not even an opportunity, it just happened. It's quite a story to tell. But I became a protege for a Cree elder and knowledge keeper for about 10 years until his passing, which was a unique event to occur in my life as a non-Indigenous person. So a lot of those 10 years inform much of what I do and how I taught, very much so. So next week, when you join us, I'm going to be sharing some of the teachings from elders in what's called Kitaskino Tribal Education Council in Northern Alberta, and some of their knowledge that I think will be valuable no matter where you are in the province. It's valuable educational knowledge that they're going to be sharing that I will share with you next week. So that's me, and I will pass it to Jody.
My gosh, you guys, I'm Jody. I work for Calgary Regional Consortium. I am, in comparison to the 2 ladies that I'm honored to share this session with, a seed, like we like to refer to in Calgary Regional Consortium terms. I am a seed who desperately wants to turn into a sprout and a healthy tree in this work. I've been a teacher since the year 2000, and I am passionate about inclusive education, diversity, and equity. I am enthusiastic, and I come to this with an open heart and an open mind and a willingness to learn. Next week, as Kim mentioned, she'll be sharing her perspective on Indigenous ways of knowing, and she'll also be focusing on the math curriculum. And English language arts is my wheelhouse, my place where I find my excitement. Well, I mean, who's not excited about teaching math, right, Kim? But English language arts is my love. So I will be looking at the English language arts through my seed glasses, but my passion for English language arts and bringing this work to that curriculum. And then Donna will correct me and we will all learn. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. And I can't wait to get started. So I'm going to throw it back to Donna.
Sure. Thank you so much for those intros, ladies. You're very humble. We're very honored to have the both of you on this webinar today. So, the first webinar is really to unpack a lot of knowledge around land-based learning and holistic learning, collaborative and relational. And so further to that, though, we really want to know who you are and what you bring to this table, and how we can move forward to support you. So our next slide, I'm hoping that you can use the annotate tool. I'm not sure if they can, Jody. And if you can't, that's okay. Maybe what you can do is put in the chat box who you are. So who are you in the grand scheme of things? Are you an educator? Are you support staff within the school community? Oh, good, thank you. Are you in leadership? Are you a librarian? Are you community liaison or other? You decide whatever your role is, and check off as many check marks as you want in that box. So we'll give you a few minutes to introduce yourself. Do you see that comment, Jody? Yeah. Okay, good. We have 2 teachers so far. Grade 5, perfect. We are going to be asking you as we move forward about what particular grade you're in, as we break out into chat rooms to talk about what your division level is and currently where you're at with Indigenous education. So we'll have time to do a lot of talking, and that's really what this webinar is about, is to unpack a lot of your own knowledge, and then as you come forward, what's going on currently within your own school divisions and your own school authorities. So if you can, we will break out into groups as we move forward. We do have, I think we have well over 60 participants. There's maybe half here today, and that's okay. But what we'll do is we'll break you up accordingly to the groups as we move forward. So lots of elementary people. We wondered, hey, Jody, and probably Kim too, about the senior or the secondary level grades, if we were going to have much participation. So if you are one of those people, that's great. Good.
I'm thrilled actually to see we've got a couple of lead teachers who are in leadership roles within Indigenous ways of knowing, or Indigenous district teachers. I recognize a couple of names here actually. So we're thrilled to have you here, guys. I'm so glad that you came. We will be pulling examples, particularly Kim and I next week. Session 2, we'll be pulling examples from the new curriculum and talking about how those learning outcomes and our beloved cusps all are interwoven and support these ways of knowing. But I think that a lot of this work will speak to those people who are here in those leadership roles, or if you teach high school, I think that you will still get a lot out of this series. So I'm just thrilled that you're here. So welcome.
Thank you. Okay, well, I guess that's that for now. And if you have any preference when we break out into groups, please just let Jody or Kim or myself know, and we'll group you accordingly. Thank you for that. So again, this is session 1. And when we were first unpacking how we would like to do this webinar, we really wanted to focus on those boards. And with that Indigenous perspective, Kim's brought her expertise in that area. So we're really looking forward to some of the teachings. And what we're going to do today, though, is to talk about, we're going to gather online, and we're really going to try and build a rich dialogue and conversation around what is Indigenous knowledge and how does it apply to my everyday classroom practice. So we want to explore instructional design principles using land-based teachings and holistic learning through an Indigenous lens. And it's not just my lens, my God, no, but what we want to do is we want to create that space for you to look through resources through an Indigenous lens and to weave Indigenous knowledge into the new curriculum. So that's what we're hoping to do. And I'm certain that you're going to walk away with tons of great ideas by the end of the, webinar 3. Okay, thank you, Jody. Feel free to pop ahead at any time. I can certainly talk. You know, part of the work that we do, and I always want to, you know, make sure that we represent, we aren't keepers of knowledge. You know, we've come a long way with what we do here and the work that we currently do. Sorry, but what we do have is a grand relationship with a lot of elders and knowledge keepers in Treaty 6, 7, and 8. And in this particular area, we have the Tsuut'ina Nation. And 32 years ago, when I started my teaching career, I taught on Tsuut'ina Nation for 6 years. And part of the role that I had was to learn the Tsuut'ina language, which I never did. Sadly, you know, it's still a call to action for me to learn as many greetings in many languages as I possibly can, and to learn Cree. And so one of the beauties of working with many First Nations across the 3 provinces is you get to work with a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. And one of my first teachers there obviously was Bruce Starlight. And so when I first started our work in the grant in 2016, I phoned him and I said, "What does reconciliation mean to you?" And so this is what he answered. And he said, "You know, we need to shift." First of all, he said it in Tsuut'ina. And I thought, oh, it sounds beautiful, but can you translate that to English? So he said, first of all, you know, we need to shift thinking and we need to shift our attitudes. We need to recreate, he says, recreating your thoughts and putting them back together in a good way. And what concise words coming from an elder, given the language, not Barry, but having ESL. And so he saw this as reconciliation and how to move forward. So I always include his quote. It was one of the first quotes I received from him or from many of the elders I worked with in 2016 when we began the work for the province of Alberta for education for reconciliation. So if we can pop ahead, Jody. So I have a bit of a question here, and it's just, it's I guess a reflective question, but so how do we apply our understanding of good pedagogy to a new curriculum? This particular of work that we did was when we had a new draft curriculum and the TQS coming forward in 2018. And so we need to remember that we need to be mindful of the new curriculum, absolutely. But we need to remain true to the calls of action, the calls to action, and we need to continue to honor the Truth and Reconciliation's principles of reconciliation. And so for me, as we move forward to the next slide, we need to honor this work in reconciliation. We're going to do so by honoring a lot of good guiding framework resources that are currently out there. And Kim, please add at any time if you see any, or if you don't see any guiding framework pieces of resources here, feel free to add. But for me, it was honoring the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. What have we learned? And honoring, you know, those narratives from the thousands of testimonials that came forward, which really gathered the work to what we're currently doing. And then the guiding voices, of course, is the First Nations Métis Inuit framework here in Alberta. The next slide is Walking Together. And so the Walking Together is Learn Alberta. And, you know, this resource has been around, I would say, and roughly, Kim, I'm not sure if you remember when it was created, but roughly around 15 years ago, and it might be even longer. But this curriculum guide is timeless. And so where you'll find a lot of great pieces of work is going to still continue to be in this particular area as we move forward. You can certainly see that like I say, they talk about the elders and culture and language, well-being, traditional environmental knowledge, kinship, and the list goes on. So if you haven't seen this resource, highly recommend that you take the time to explore it. Okay. The next slide are quotes. Take a couple minutes to read. And then after reading those quotes, what stands out for you? For me, you know, it's always the dialogue around Indigenous ways of being. But place your comments in the chat box as we move forward to talk about what these comments are, sorry, what these mean for you, these quotes. Further to that, if you'd like to share at any point in time, you're more than welcome to join in conversation, or again, just pop them in the chat box if you would like. Thank you, Jyoti. Close connections to nature. Yeah, perfect. Lots of great comments there. Kim or Jody, if you would like to read, absolutely help away. About relationships. Don't we talk about relationships, Kim?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And relationships, not just with people, but with the land. And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked here, Donna. I was just making a copy of the slide presentation. Are you okay if I share it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So there you go, folks. I shared it, so you should be able to open it.
Oh, good.
There.
Well, I'm really glad that you ladies are on the on the techie side here. I still struggle with Google Docs and Google Slides, but I am learning as I go. Thank you, Kevin. Deep and meaningful connections to the land. Yeah, there was an understanding about how the land worked, where to be at a time of year, and how to give it back. Kim, I know Kim and I for sure, when I go home for Thanksgiving into northern Saskatchewan, I know that we'll have fresh food from the area. I have several brothers that have a big family, are still moose hunting, deer hunting, and so we'll see a lot of that when we go home. So it's just the time of the year and how to share in the harvest. And so we're so very fortunate that we continue those practices. So for me, it's something very near and dear to my heart. A lot of great answers. Thank you for that. Reciprocity. Yeah. A lot of these quotes are from one of the resources that we're going to really kind of deep dive into. And I just wanted to bring this particular slide to your attention because what we want to do is segue into Indigenous knowledge. So any of those quotes that you've just read and have Kim has shared is all around Indigenous knowledge and how we have come to be, thousands and thousands of years in the making when we talk about, the generations of the Indigenous knowledge systems and how it's passed orally through time, through through leadership in the community, and so the list goes on. So we are going to explore a lot more as we move through. So if you can, yeah, go ahead.
I did have one more thing just to add in there when I think of a lot of that's been shared with me over the years is the importance of language as well, and that the language is the culture. So always trying to weave language in as much as possible. So.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think I've shared with people before and I'm a really, I'm not going to say I'm jealous of Kim, but I know Kim is almost a fluent Cree speaker. And so for me, it's heart-rendering and it resonates very well with me. Unfortunately, in my family, and I have a dad that speaks Michif, and my mom spoke Cree, but we were not taught languages as we grew up. And I remember when I started this work, I remembered clearly asking my mom, why didn't you teach us the language? We knew a lot of ceremony and day-to-day tasks, and we were taught a lot of things, but language was not one she was proud of. And she said, it was just easier for you not to know it. So how sad is that, when we look at residential school and the legacy that it has turned for us, and language being one of those barriers for me. So as I say, I'm always trying to improve and learn. So for me, it's a call to action is to learn language as I get older. So just wanted to share that. And language is so important. So the next slide is Indigenous knowledge systems. And so we have holistic, collaborative, and relational. And at any time, Kim, feel free, or Jody, to pop in. So we know that instructional design values Indigenous ways of knowing, and it includes ways of approaching teaching and learning that there are holistic and collaborative and relational approaches. And these mindsets pay homage to the ways in which Indigenous cultures come to know and understand the world. So in traditional societies, children were raised by adults in the community. So it could have been a grandma, a grandfather, it could have been many aunts and uncles or cousins, but it was a communal relationship. So everyone in the community had individuals who had close contact with the family and were considered family. So elders and grandparents worked to foster skills in all the children, and tasks like hunting and childcare were shared with the youth. So life skills were learned by watching and listening and doing, and grandparents shared the values of the tribe or our community through oral story, through historical perspectives, and then of course through teachings. And all of these were ways of approaching knowledge, served to build a collective knowledge drawn from a collective wisdom. We bump to the next slide, and at any point in time, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to pop into the chat box or raise your hand and you can speak. And or Kim and Jody, if you have anything you'd like to share, feel free to do that as well. Excuse me. So holistic, when we talk about that concept, we talk about finding connection to the community, to the natural world, and through building relationships to the community. So we want to deepen your understanding about First Nations, Inuit, Métis and Inuit people through culture and with culture. And so we also talk about, and I didn't, particularly focus on it in this slide deck, but I know that Kim and myself know a lot about Wokotwin and the natural Cree law. And so this really lends to a lot of the teachings around it. So in this particular slide deck, we talk about how teaching was everyone's responsibility, and it didn't focus solely on the one member of the community, much like our own classrooms today. As we talk, I don't want to say stand and deliver, but a lot of the sharing that we do seems to maybe be that way. But in a holistic community, children would be taught by family and community. There would be hands-on activities and teachings, and they're experiential. They took place in the environment, likely outside, right? And so lifelong teachings were taught. Children were students and teachers, and we learned by watching and doing. So learning was lifelong, and it started at birth and it ended at death. So as we look at that circle of life, that's really how we want to focus on Indigenous knowledge systems today. So we know that children were the students, but they were also the teachers, and adults and elders could also learn from the wisdom of children. Children learned by watching their parents and their family accomplish tasks, and they were given opportunities to also attempt those tasks. Kim, do you have anything to share?
Not at this moment. I'm going to be sharing a bit of story and conversations next week with my non-Indigenous perspective combined with my working partner who is First Nations and Métis. So it's kind of neat, some of the differences in perspectives.
So again, if we talk about Indigenous knowledge systems, we're going to talk about the collaborative approach. So learning from Indigenous community, it really is important to build those relationships. As we always say, nothing about us without us, and how important that is. And it still continues to be to this day. Community collaboration and reaching out to elders is really important. And to work with knowledge keepers, your parents, your parent community, and supports in the community to increase that connectedness to learning in your classroom. So we know that who else can add perspectives and rich concepts from the community? If we look at knowledge keepers and elders, certainly they play a very critical role in how we learn about Indigenous knowledge systems. So the opportunities, for a small and large group collaboration still continues to exist, and that there was a community collaboration in almost everything that was done. So collaborative approaches, seek to create an extended family of learning to support and enrich concepts. And I think maybe, yeah, Jody might be, yeah, there we go. Yeah, you're catching up, we're good. So again, we're going to focus in on, we have a bit of a question here, and I'm going to just take you through it here. Indigenous knowledge systems, of course, and our approach discussion. So we want to collaborate with community that builds a rich experience for all learners. So how can you collaborate with Indigenous community that's close to you? And maybe you're already in a great relationship with your Indigenous community, but we really want to unpack some of this and ways in which you approach it. So to understand community, elders and knowledge keepers are considered invaluable to supporting Indigenous ways of knowing. Are you familiar with engagement of elder protocols? I guess that's a question, maybe a reflective question, but so how can you collaborate with Indigenous community close to you? And the second part of that is, are you familiar with engagement of elder protocols? At any time, feel free to speak or you can place your comments in the chat box. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes for that. Kim and Jody, you're welcome to share as well.
I was going to just jump in here. So do you think, Donna, that a lot of non-Indigenous teachers are nervous or shy about doing the wrong thing here? Or do you find that people are becoming more and more comfortable with trying to engage with their Indigenous communities that are nearby?
That's a great question. Certainly, I know I've been approached with how do we build relationships, and I always say, how do you build relationships with anybody, right? I mean, you have to take the time. It takes good conversation. It just takes, a cup of tea, as Kim shared earlier, a lot of tea drinking along the way. And I certainly have done that. As we've approached this work in our grant phase in 2016 to 2019, there were a lot of elders and knowledge keepers I did not know. And so what it took for me was to get a phone number or an email address and send out some form of communication and just say, hey, I'd like to meet with you. And 100% of the time they were on board. They were curious to know what we were doing and how we were going to approach this work. And certainly from my perspective, it was, I can't move forward without your relationship in this, nor will I even think about moving forward in this relationship without your, your presence and your conversations around what you think reconciliation is, how to proceed, as we talked about residential schools and the legacy of, and then historical perspectives. And really importantly, I don't think enough conversation is done around treaty education to this day. So I think, we certainly have had a lot of opportunity to sit and just talk about what they seem important, what they deem important, and how we approached it. So I see Dawn on Granley on the screen, and I'm going to ask you, Dawn, and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but you look very familiar, and I'm going to have you talk if you'd like to share.
Hi there. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes, yeah.
Hi, I'm Dawn. I'm a learning specialist, but been a teacher for about 30 years. I'm also a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta. My family's line is from the Piquettes and the Chalafoos from around St. Albert and Lac St. Anne. And my Indigenous identity is relatively new over the last 20 years, as it was something that wasn't shared or celebrated for fear of the repercussions of that. So it's something that I am just uncovering now and working hard to build. I'm very fortunate. I work in a school division where we have an Indigenous learning branch with a new Indigenous director who has many connections to the Indigenous community around us. And actually today I was in a meeting where our director was sharing with us protocols and mindful practices when engaging with our Indigenous community, with the students, as well as the elders and knowledge keepers. So I feel as though as part of my own personal journey as a teacher, I'm very fortunate to have those supports. It is a journey I've been on as a teacher, working with students for sure in sharing my family story. And I do find that in sharing those stories with my students, their level of engagement is very high. So when you show these slides about connections and relationships, it speaks to me without me having knowing that was who I am. It is who I am. So I do enjoy this conversation, and I'm not much of a speaker in public, so but once I start talking about this, I can't stop. So I'll stop now.
No, feel free to have those conversations. I love, maybe it's a Métis thing. I think once you get on that, those conversations, they become really deep and meaningful. And I love your question, Jody, because I think that people still have some hesitation and anxiety and apprehension around the work. How do I do this when I'm not Indigenous? Or how do I do this work when I know that I don't have enough background? And so, foundational knowledge is still a huge part of what we do moving forward. And so I've been in many presentations where I've had comments such as, "Oh, well, thank you for the social studies lesson, but we didn't really need it." And, it was a bit hurtful, but at the same time, I thought, how are we going to know these pieces of foundational knowledge if we don't have those discussions? We can't just all assume that you're all on the same page, moving forward at the same time. That's not how this work really proceeds. So Jody, I love your question about how, what is going on out there? Are people comfortable? And I know that Jody comes to this work with us as a fairly new participant. So I give her great credit to come on board, but she is such an expert in our designer of professional learning at Calgary Regional that we're very fortunate. So the next slide, we talk about exploring through artifacts and learning from stories, sharing personal reflections, place-based learning through land, and relationships always come first. If you don't know who Dr. Dwayne Donald is, you'd be the only person not to. I'm joking, but he is such a phenomenal, very well educated, lovely man. I believe he works at the U of A still. And so that's a quote from him. But I just want to share a quick story. I had the luxury and the humbleness of working with an elder from Siksika Nation last week. And we did several presentations with some huge schools. And one of the things that he did was, through his own journey with residential schools, he talked about how he came to be a knowledge keeper and an elder, and really a holy man. He is a member of the Horan Society in Siksika. And so he is such a breath of fresh air. So everywhere he goes, and I say to him, "Randy, please bring artifacts," because we can have the best laid out presentation, but sometimes the follow through is not always what we would hope for. But when he brings artifacts and weaves his stories through these artifacts, his personal reflections and all the learning that he has learned throughout his years as an elder, it is so impactful. So we are very, very fortunate to have the teachings through artifacts. And so when we talk about that relational piece, that's really what we're so fortunate to have. So if you ever have an elder or a knowledge keeper that you can embed into your school authority or division, then it's really highly recommended that you have that engagement, because what he brought to those students, kindergarten to grade 12, was a story about a headdress or a bow and arrow, or just his bustle. He's a world-class chicken dancer, and he had so many wonderful pieces. And the language, as Kim has shared, he not only speaks Blackfoot, but he's a Cree speaker as well. So we had a wonderful time. And so for me, having that elder weave story through those holistic teachings, really, it was just like emphasized and really enhanced everything that we're currently talking about today. So if we want to learn, what we want to learn cannot be separated from the processes that we go through while learning. So for teaching and learning to be meaningful, we need to see ourselves in ecological relation to that which we want to know. So relations always come first. Again, that's a quote by Dwayne Donald. So what does that quote mean to you? As we unpack some of the work here. And so if you can share your thoughts again in the chat box, or I don't like to pick on people, but if I see you on the screen, I'm going to ask if you'd like to share. Feel free to speak. We allow that, right, ladies? Oh yes, Jody, I forgot that we had Elder Randy at your school last June for National Aboriginal Day, and what a phenomenal experience. It was just, it was breathtaking. He was such a impactful presenter, and the kids loved him, I'm sure.
Do you know what I find heartwarming, Donna, is that we've got so many comments in the chat talking about that there is a team of people or individuals within school boards who are supporting this work in different ways. And I think that that reflects such a systemic priority, hopefully, in bringing this work forward. That was not always the case. So I think that that's really encouraging or heartwarming to me to see that that is a place where people or districts might be just putting their money where their mouth is, to put it in a certain way, to say that we're going to hire people in this role, we are going to engage in this work. And I think that that to me is really encouraging.
Right. Well, I think good comment, Jody. I believe that in order to make this work sustainable, we have to make it sustainable with a financial component where, yes, they're from the community and they're involved in the community, but at the same time, the knowledge that they present and that sharing of Indigenous ways of knowing is so important to schools that we really need to factor in that component when we want to have elders and knowledge keepers from the community. I see that Heather, I just want to comment on Heather Beaver's chat box here. I know that you're in an area of Alberta where there are few Indigenous. We have connected with our closest one, and the relationships over the years have been disappointing. That's really unfortunate, and certainly it's probably a challenge for many school divisions across Alberta. But you know what? There's always hope. And as I say, contact one of us. We have many resources that we can and people that we've met along the way that we can certainly direct you to. And I'm going to hone in on Kim here. I know that Kim's had to build a relationship with community in the work that she has done. And so it's really important, that we don't have those disappointments. In order to be successful, it really does take a lot of relationship building, right?
And I was just going to add in that I read your comment there, Heather, and I had the same response. That's unfortunate. And I guess way up here where I'm talking about my journey being from the 60s, where things were pretty messed up for many, many years. And even in my educational career, it was difficult, and there were barriers and roadblocks and issues around racism that were horrific up in this area. But the key was not to give up, to keep trying, and to keep trying to continue building those relationships, it's tempting to give up. It can get frustrating, but just keep trying. I just wanted to share one thing in my journey about relationships and the quote that are there. And this is a very simple thing, but it was impactful to me in the work that I've done. When I first started consulting, I knew that I'd heard it over and over and over again for years and years and years, relationships first, relationships first. And the critical piece of that, the very first session that I did was even further north, way up north. And I left, it wasn't horrible, but I left feeling uncomfortable and something wasn't right. And as I was driving the 6 hours home, it hit me. And I went, I didn't start with relationships first. And I know this, and I didn't do it. And that was, for me, every time now, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm with 100 adults or 200 adults or 20 kids, doesn't matter. I always start with some type of relationships first in those after starting in a good way. So even in the classroom, and I worked with a team of administrators and modeled for them relationships first. And I know now, many years later, they're still all doing the same activities that I did with them for 2 years. And they said it changes everything if you start with those connections first. Get and leave business till later and start with getting to know each other first. So I just thought I'd throw that 2 cents in there, because boy, did I learn.
Thank you, Kim, for that. And, I think even to this day, there are certain times when we're out presenting, and it can be an awkward uncomfortableness still to this day, right? And I think people, they have a timeline. We have to be out of this gym by this time, and this person is taking too long. So, I hear you. There are a lot of obstacles that we have to navigate through. But you know what? Key to that, and I love some of the comments here, that relationships are so important. Kevin, thank you for that. We can often forget that how a student learns or how we deliver content can change or shape how learning is processed by students. Absolutely. We need to remember that, as the quote says, that it's an interconnectedness process. The better relationship with a student, the more open a student or learner will be, willing to truly hear what has been said. And isn't that the truth for any relationships? And as we have Indigenous community very hesitantly, wanting to come into a school, I often share this story. I had this lovely grade 11 teacher, English high school back home in Saskatchewan. And I said to my mom, you've got to come meet him. And I dragged her in there, like kicking and screaming, I'm sure. And then after we left the school, my mom said, this is the first time I've been in a school since residential school. And it struck me really, really hard, impactful, because I thought, wow, the courage it took for her to go into that school, it was just, insurmountable. I had no idea that it was going to take that much to get her in there. But once she got in there, she was fine. But I remember her walking around kind of looking and taking it all in. And I didn't realize, there are so many, barriers because of residential schools still to this day that we have to contend with. So I get it. Relationships are still going to be a tough one. Thank you for those lovely comments. I appreciate it. We're going to pop over to instructional design. We do have time where we're going to sit and visit and talk, or if you have a tea, or what I didn't do, Jody or Kim, is I'm so busy trying to cram as much as I can. At any point in time, if you have to leave to get a drink or a bathroom break, please do that. I did not allow any time for that, and I'm hoping we just kind of plow through. But we're going to talk about instructional design and what that looks like through an Indigenous lens. So we have this slide. It's called Etowapmimp, and so it's the idea of two-eyed seeing, and it's having multiple perspectives. So no one perspective is better than the other. Rather, it's honoring both knowledges, and designing learning is really a whole to support all learners. So, we talk about this lovely Indigenous way of knowing and being. And I just love this work. And it's coined by Albert Marshall from the Mi'kmaq Nation East. And so for me, it's really the process in which we forward in this work, that there's no one way, that rather that we weave. Are there any, comments? I just heard some background noise now. So the next slide after that this video is called Two Sciences. And so what it is bringing two perspectives together to understand the importance of bringing Western ways and Indigenous ways of knowing, and how they really complement each other in many ways. Is one way better than the other? So through this video, you'll capture some ideas, and we're going to just take the time to watch it. It's about 7 minutes in length. So I'll get Jody to hit play. Hopefully we'll have no issues with tap and sound.
Wetlands, for me, growing up around here, the importance of it for us was just food. Like in August, when the ducks are molting and that, we used to go around the shore like this as kids, and we'd go and we'd have dogs with us. The dogs would chase the ducks out that couldn't fly, and the ones that, because they're molting, they can't fly, they'd run inshore, and then would kill them, and then we'd go right around the lake like that. And also when I was a kid, I'd go with my grandfather to places like this, and as soon as the geese and ducks were back, we'd go gather eggs.
I didn't know I wanted to be a scientist. I knew at 10 that whatever I wanted my job to be something that was out here in where the land met the water. I didn't realize that, one could sort of grow up and live off the land. That was never an option for me. The option was, well, I could study them.
This is really important. There's a lot of medicines in here, and even this here cattail. One of my brothers one time were back in a bush, and they burnt their foot. Mm-hmm. And so what my mom did is she took this stuff along with some lard, and they put it on there, mm-hmm. and then they wrapped his foot up. Hmm. And that was for a burn. Yeah, uh-huh. This is all medicine, and even the certain times of the year coming up here, the roots. Mm-hmm. That's a food. We're looking at a poplar tree that a beaver has cut years ago. And this one's tapered, as you can see. Okay, here's an example of a chainsaw that cut this here. Here's an example of a beaver, one that cut with it by a beaver. Can't do it. Look at the beaver, the one that beaver did. Okay. Well, why it's important is because this here is chewed on an angle. So when the water hits it, it reflects off. It doesn't absorb back in. If it's cut straight across like this, the water sits on it, and it takes longer for it to decay. You can see this here just decays right away, and it's gone back into the earth. Can't do it. If it's cut straight with a chainsaw, it's left there for probably another 10 years.
That's one thing I'd like to have people change their views on is, people regard beavers as a pest instead of as something that creates one of the most valuable ecosystems on Earth. And how do your people view beaver?
It's put there by the Creator exactly for that. To change the way the water is meant to be. Not some people view it as being dead, stagnant water, but that all is a reason. There's a dam there supporting life.
To keep the water on the land, to keep it from all running off quickly, you know. And so you have beaver there, And so what if it takes a few trees? I mean, that's its role, that's its job.
We were doing a consultation with a pipeline company, and I asked that very same question. I says, well, okay, if you're running a pipeline across an area where there was a beaver house and stuff, what happens to the beaver? You know, and her thing was, well, it's not an endangered species.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but
Neither are humans.
that's right. Neither were caribou at one time, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I know the species and I understand how they work, but I've never had my survival, for example, depend upon anything like this.
An elder put it the best way that I could describe it is it's the kidney of the world. All wetlands.
Yeah. But different wetlands have different sort of functions that I study. And so sometimes peatlands have one sort of value that I, as a scientist, would value, and other wetlands have other values. I come out to a lake and I would say, well, it's my hypothesis, it's my theory that this lake's plants and animals are responding to some parameter. And then I go and test that, and it's a yes or no answer. What I see that elders and native peoples know, it's a comprehensive understanding of the ecosystem, and they're very analytical for things that relate to what they need to know for their survival or their enjoyment, actually, too. As a scientist, I come in and I actually don't have anywhere near that comprehensive understanding. I might be able to look out there and see that there's snails, and so that means the pH of that water is going to be, you know, like 7 to 8, and that you'll never have problems with acid rain. But it's such a narrow perspective relative to what native peoples have.
To us, science is more what we have seen happen, what we know is going to happen, because we're using everything from the past that we've learned. To us, that's our vision of science.
You know, I'm only coming there when I happen to come out to sample. I really don't know the land. You know, I know the science of it, but I don't know, you know, what comes and goes, and, you know, how the seasons affect each little thing, and that's hugely important. I mean, the way you view it with, you know, the survival of the peoples and their entire education, that's much broader. You know?
Okay.
So I mean, science tests hypotheses, and that's why it's narrow.
I think what you have to do, First Nations scientists have to be together. Somehow you have to work together where you use the elders' wisdom, where you can go out there and they can say, this is what we see happening on the land. This is an indicator to us.
There's another way I value Native people is that actually by having to be consulted, and I think they should be increasingly consulted, that's actually one of the few powers that are available in our society. And I think we ought to be linked together there and say, you need to be consulted more, and you need to know more of what we know. It's because it's only actually Native peoples that can stop anything.
That's
you might
right.
not feel that way, but we do.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a lovely video, Jody, but we probably don't need to watch it again. I love the video. I think that you know, that we'll certainly have time to go through and take a look more in depthly at some of the resources. And that video is from the Sacred Relationships with Water, and it was developed by the Native Counseling Services of Alberta, which is, you know, when I saw this resource, you know, 3 years back, I thought, wow, what an incredible resource. It aligns with the grade 5 and the grade 6 curriculum here in Alberta. And there are lesson plans, and I believe there are 10 videos that go with it. So it's a provincial wide initiative. So it's not just the Cree Ways of Knowing, it's Blackfoot, it's many different nations throughout Alberta. And that's what I really like about it, is the the multiple perspectives that it gives. So I love the idea of Etowah monk and the two-eyed seeing. And so I'm not sure. Okay, so I think somebody's got their gray, part of the gray is on the screen, but that's okay. So it supports and builds on the strengths of both Indigenous Western ways of knowing and learning. So how can the idea support both? What was your takeaway from that video as we unpack it? And I believe the next yes, the next slide is, what does this video say? So in general terms, what does this video say about learning? And what does this video mean to us as educators transitioning to a new curriculum? So I took this lovely slide from a slide deck that my designers of professional learning colleagues have built for new curriculum across Zone 5. And I used it in this context because I thought it would make perfect, it really correlates well with it. But what matters most about the designing of our learning experiences as we look through a video such as that. So I'll give you a few minutes to think about what does this video say? What does it mean? And what matters as we approach it? So I don't know, Jody, if we have the capacity to actually write anything on there, but if you don't, that's okay. We can always put our comments in the chat box.
So if participants would like to write directly on this slide, you can use your annotate feature in Zoom, and then it will give you the ability to have text. Or you can always put a say mean matters in the chat for us as well. But you should be able to annotate using your Zoom features.
Right,
The same bar as where your mute and video buttons and participants are, there should be an annotate button.
Further to that, Jody and Kim, oh, thank you. There's perfect. I was going to go, there are Jamboards embedded into this slide deck as well. So we'll get to those, but thank you. I see people already uploading comments on there. So I think the video is great. It's probably about the 10th time I've watched it. I learn something new from it every time. When we look at Indigenous ways of knowing, I think that it really does. It really reinforces how we need to work better in relationships as we move forward. Indigenous knowledge is not in a textbook, you know, as you're never going to read about those experiences, but what you are going to do is capture those experiences by learning from the land and being out on the land. So that's really important to hone in on that. Kim?
I was just going to share what came up for me as I was watching the video and listening is in the new curriculum. I've had questions from a few teachers and colleagues of, it says somewhere in, I think it's in kindergarten, and then there's another place in the English language arts. What does it mean to read the land? And there was a prime example of reading the land and paying attention to what the land is telling you and what. So it just reinforces that whole piece of being outside and taking your students outside is so important. And learning how to look at what's right in front of you and what does it mean. It's so important. That's reading the land, part of it for sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. There's lots of great chats, comments in the chat box as well, if you take a moment to read through. I see that some of these outcomes are, what does it say? Grade 1 LA. So thank you, Alyssa. It's important to listen to the perspective of others, absolutely, as it can better help us to understand the functionality, purpose, and the importance of something. In terms of new curriculum, it's important for us to collaborate when approaching something new, as it can help open our eyes and minds to things that we may not fully understand. And, you know, as we unpack some of these comments, as we approach some of the new curriculum pieces that are currently there, how do we connect, you know, these Indigenous ways of knowing with it? So, you know, videos such as this really help to explore that and make those connections and you know, connect the dots. As Kim just said, learning from the land is huge. I mean, we just have to take a group outside and find a sit spot, and maybe we take pictures of, our sit spot in the fall, what it looks like in the winter, again in the spring, and then in the summer. So there's just so many ways that you can approach some of this work. So there are lots of great comments coming through here. I'm going to read a couple more. We met with an elder. Let's see. This is from, sorry. Sorry, my mouse is not helping here. Mary Beth from, I love that school division. I forgot the name of it. Foothills Charter? No, sorry. Sorry. We met with an elder through the CPL, and we were able to ask questions about how to teach some of the new curriculum pieces, such as protocols for sharing circles. Good. Sorry, I can't, my mouse is just not cooperating with me. Those opportunities are invaluable. Absolutely, they are. Whenever you can have an elder, Westmount, thank you, in your school, that would be ideal. Okay, so we've got, anyone else want to comment or share their experiences? Good. Okay, well, we can bump to the next slide. We are going to have, this is where we jump into conversation. And as you know, as we have gone through this webinar series, my first initial naming of the series was Gathering Knowledge. I thought, wow, what a better way to, come together to gather knowledge to support the new curriculum the best way we can through an Indigenous lens. So I popped it in there, and these are design questions just to help you break it down. So what Jody and Kim and I think Jody mostly is because she's the techie person here, but we're going to have breakout groups for about 15 minutes. I realize it's almost 10 after 5 already, so we're going to have time to unpack some of these, go through a couple of questions, resources, and then Jody's going to take us through a board, the new curriculum, and she's going to navigate through that. So we might be back. Why don't we say 10 minutes? I'm just going to put a 10 in there. So choose a room or a division that applies to you. Discuss the assigned question until time is reached, and then choose a recorder keeper of knowledge gathered. But what we can do, I think, Jody, is we did put the Jamboards in there for that reason. So share with the group the conversations built around your design questions, and then record on your assigned Jamboards. Does that make sense? Oh, Jody, are you on mute?
Sorry, I'm with you.
Okay, good.
So hopefully everyone is able to access the slide deck. If you go to slide number
31.
30. So questions that Donna has designed for our consideration are starting on slide 31 all the way to slide 36, and then the Jamboard links are on slide 37. So I will take you through those quickly, and then we will kick you out into breakout rooms.
Mm-hmm. You know, the very I believe it's the very number 35 is really a leadership type of a question. So as a leader, what is your role in Indigenous education, and what protocols are shared to support school communities? And maybe that's something that you can choose to pop into and answer. So that's,
yeah, for sure,
slide number 35.
Yeah, so, and
Sorry,
each Jamboard has all of these questions in them. So the questions being, how can we embrace the Indigenous idea of wholeness in the classroom? In what way can Indigenous knowledge systems enhance how I design learning for my students? How might valuing Indigenous knowledge and other systems in our learning promote cultural appreciation and advance reconciliation? How do you weave Indigenous knowledge into your classrooms? And to me, for those of you who are in a leadership role, this still applies in the realm of professional learning. So if you lead professional learning as part of your role, how do you weave these priorities and these ways of seeing into that work? And then, as Donna mentioned, as a leader, what is your role in Indigenous education, and what protocols are shared to support school communities? And finally, how does embracing Indigenous knowledge relate to and complement my current teaching practices and approaches? So for those of you who are in the slide deck, you're going to want to go to slide 37. And there are Jamboards there that have been created. One for kinder, one for grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, and then those of you who are in other roles. So what I will do is set up some breakout rooms right now. How many do I need, Donna?
Well, we have 25.
Let's make
So
6 breakout rooms because there's 6 Jamboards.
sure. Yep. Okay, that works.
And then you will choose your room based on your grade. So if you're grade 1, you're going to choose breakout room 1, grade 2, breakout room 2, grade 3, breakout room 3, grade 4 to 6 and up. If you are a teacher in those grades, you're going to choose the next breakout room. And our other people, our kinders, you're going to choose breakout room 5. And our other roles, you're going to choose breakout room 6. So I'm going to try and rename these as we go, but the breakout rooms are open. So if you teach grade 1, you're going to head to breakout room 1 and click on the breakout room for grade 1. If you teach grade 2, you're going to click on breakout room 2. Kinders, you're in room 5. And if you are in another role within your system, whether it's an Indigenous education lead or whatever that may be, you're going to head to room 6.
Kim and Jody, feel free to pop into a room as well. I think I'm going to. Yeah, so we'll give ourselves 10 minutes.
For sure. And then those of you who are just trying to figure out what I was telling you to do and are having trouble joining, please just unmute yourself and let me know where I should send you. Or I'm just going to start assigning you, which is always a good time too.
So if you're a guest teacher, should you join the other?
I would still join, Alyssa, I would join one of the ones that's for teachers. Is there a division that you typically are guest teacher in?
K to 6, so all over the place. But I
I'm
guess
going to send you, do you mind if I send you to room 1?
sure.
Great.
I'm in kinder. I'm just having trouble getting into room 5.
Kelly, room 5. You're headed there now. Thank you.
Can you put Karen into room 4, please?
Karen, heading to room 4. There's nobody in room 4, Karen. Can I put you somewhere else?
Sure, 3.
Okay. Room 3 is empty too. So that's neat. Is there anyone else here right now who needs to go to room 4?
I do. Amy?
Okay. Amy and Karen, you guys.
Yeah, sorry. I'm on my phone, so I can't figure out how to do it off my phone.
Nope. Got you.
I'm in my phone too.
Okay. Karen's going there. Amy's going to room 4.
Is room 5 grade 5?
Room 5 was kinder. I'm going to send you to room 4.
Okay.
Jody was grade 6.
I'm going to send you to room 4 as well.
All right, thank you.
Brett, where can I send you?
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that little snippet of opportunity to have a conversation and connect with each other was valuable to you. I'm going to hand it to Donna to pick up sharing some of the incredible resources she's got embedded in this slide deck.
Absolutely. So, you know, as per usual, I always run out of time. So sorry, but there's so many great resources out there. We're not going to get to all of them, but you know, certainly Kim and I and Jody are highlighting a few, and you'll see a lot of these next week with the same slide deck. So you'll see all of the parts and pieces that we're referring to as we move through. So this next slide here, Jody, am I in charge or you still are? Okay, there we are. Okay, so we have empowering the spirit, which is the best site ever. And it's where all of our ARPDC resources are highlighted. And what's really happened is it created to capture education for reconciliation. So you'll see tons of resources from Walking Together, Learn Alberta, and just somebody's screen's back. Is it yours, Jody? I can't. There we go. I'm not sure where that black block is coming from, but that's what's currently there. So it includes Orange Shirt Day and beyond. There's extensive grade level resources. It includes Weaving Ways, the First People's Principle, and the Circle of Courage. And I didn't put in there the 7 sacred teachings, but somewhere along the line, you'll see it in there. This next one is infusing Indigenous knowledge systems into the curriculum. And this is the Kitaskanou curriculum that Kim was referring to, and there's some great pieces in there. Some of the videos that we just saw the video was from the water and the sacred relationships, and from an Indigenous knowledge keeper's perspectives as well. Indigenous education on the Cass Alberta site has a great interactive guide that is all centered around building relationships with Indigenous people. And then of course, Walking Together, the Learn Alberta, that's a cross-curricular online resource. And I think it's at the beginning of this slide deck that I had placed it. Our Words, Our Way, again, is a resource that, I want to say it's probably created early 2000s, and it's such a timeless resource, and there's great information in there and great strategies, lots of really good resources in there that continue to work well in your setting. First Nations professional learning, again, that you'll find on our Empowering the Spirit website, a resource that's been created, and it really guides you through to support educators to really build that foundational knowledge, as we say. And then the rest, I didn't add the little blurb to it, but these are all live. So Paths to Reconciliation, lovely friend Charlene Barehead is one of the education partners there, and they've done some wonderful work under Canadian Geographic. Reconciliation Canada, all built around the legacies of residential school. The National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, AFN Toolkit. Love Rupert's Métis resources. They've done an incredible job with their resources, so I can't say enough about it. They're just wonderful. Orange Shirt Day is a site that you'll find lots of great activities woven throughout. Walking Together, that's that lovely, I see one of our participants, Ms. Cheryl Devon, on board, Walking Together, and some of the HEA resources that are currently sitting there. Great resources, you couldn't get any better. The Chani Wenjack story, again, that's related with Gord Downey and the Secret Path, the Legacy of Hope, and of course the CBC Indigenous Kids. They've got great resources in there for I don't even know what grade level, but there's lots of good resources. Paths to Reconciliation, that again is Canadian Geographic, Reconciliation Canada, and then that toolkit. So I've got a couple things in here I doubled. So you'll see lots of good resources. So what we want you to do is, I said to Jody that I'm sorry I ran out of time. We are going to start right forward in the next webinar to the new Learn Alberta boards and how to weave Indigenous knowledge. This specific slide is weaving your braid. So review your components of Indigenous knowledge and the instructional design on your Jamboard. And those Jamboards, Jody, I don't know, I'm assuming they're included in this slide deck. So I want you to think about resources you've seen, consider where it makes sense to include approaches that are holistic, relational, or collaborative, and then plan ways and approaches for weaving Indigenous knowledge into your boards. So we're going to come back. We're going to jump in head first next week. We'll do a bit of review around Indigenous knowledge systems, and then we're going to jump into the new curriculum and the boards through the site. And Kim and Jody are going to take you through how to create some of those boards and some of the resources that are currently available for your use. So our wrap up is, what questions am I left with probably many. What
We have
ways can
about
I
3 minutes. We could maybe invite people if they have any questions while we
Yes.
have our last few minutes to just
Yeah. Yeah.
put comments to our experts.
Absolutely. So what I'm just going to read this last and then feel free.
For sure. Yeah.
What ways can I continue to embed Indigenous knowledge systems into my classroom, practice, or school community? And do I have all the information for next week's learning? But and so, as Jody said, feel free to pop in into that chat box at any point in time and leave comments or questions.
I'm wondering, Jody, if it makes sense to give people a heads up about joining New Learn Alberta before next week, just so then they'll have access to the boards.
Absolutely. So if there's anyone here who does not have a New Learn Alberta account, a teacher account, please make sure that you go to New Learn Alberta this week as soon as possible and register for your teacher account. You will need your teacher certificate number to do that. If you don't have a teacher account, you will not be able to access the boards. And next week, Kim and I are going to spend time teaching you how to use boards as a planning tool, how to use them to dig into that new curriculum and connect together curriculum outcomes and resources. So it is important that you have access to that. We've got a question from Amy. Should we come prepared by reviewing Indigenous components of the new curriculum within your grade level? We're going to do that together next week, Amy. But what might help you is looking at some of those resources that Donna just shared at the end of her slide deck. Have a look through, familiarize yourself a little bit. There is a lot there. So that's how I would spend the time. And then Kim and I are going to spend our session next week getting into those curriculum outcomes of the new curriculum. Great question. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We've got a lot of people saying thank you. I want to thank Donna for taking the heavy lifting of all the talking today for the most part. And Kim, as always, for sharing your expertise. I am so grateful that you guys are here with us and that we get to learn from you. So if you have any lingering questions,